online this morning. I know a couple of people are still joining. For those of you who have been with me on a session before, I do also kind of like to know who is on the call with us and who we're engaging with today. We've got some interesting conversations coming up, and we really hope you're going to enjoy this session with us this morning. So let's quickly test out your Zoom skills. In your Zoom window, you will see you should have the option to access your chat pane. And I'd like everyone, just while we're waiting for everyone to join us and come online, pop a quick message in the chat and let us know who you are, where you're from. Really love to know who's all on the call with us this morning. Hello, Cape Town. So nice to have you with us. I hope your weather's good. Nice. Large company in Joburg, FD. Thank you for joining us. Franz from Kempton Park, just around the corner. Nairobi, welcome. Jambo. We've got Dirk from Johannesburg, Joburg, Cape Town, loving it, guys. Boxburg, always just on my doorstep. In Industria, hi Logan. We've got Lawrence from Santon. Nice to have you online. Pretoria's with us as well. Good to have Pretoria on the call. Ooh, East London, welcome as well. Efe from Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome, Nigeria. Really good to have you joining us. Final year students at Rhodes University. Congrats. All the best with your studies for the year. Alex from Nairobi as well. Really great to have Nairobi and Kenya and Nigeria on the line with us. Henry from Secunda, welcome. Shane Cruz, Johannesburg, welcome as well. Sunning Hill, also just around the corner. Fantastic, everyone, really, really great. Thanks for sharing, thanks for reaching out on the chat. Okay, so we've confirmed we definitely all know how the chat works. So I really want you to keep the chat going during this morning's session. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Deirdre Fryer. I'm the Head of Solutions for Syspro Africa. And we really started off this journey just unpacking what a digital transformation looks like. So the chat becomes quite important for us during the sessions. It's a great way for us to engage. And I'm sorry, I think I may have just dropped off. Michelle, can you just confirm that I'm back, please? Perfect, thank you. Okay, so really important. I'd really encourage you all to use the chat. Let's keep talking. So during the session, there's also a Q&A section of your Zoom panel. So if you want to ask any questions while the speakers are talking, please pop your questions in the Q&A or in the chat pane. We'll be looking at those and see how best we can answer them. We'll try to get through as many of the questions as we can. If not, we'll definitely try and reach out after the session. So please don't hold back. Let us know if you have any questions that you would like to ask, any insights during the sessions, and we'll try and get to them as quickly as possible. Added to that, let's not forget our previous two sessions, we ran a competition around our Twitter King. We've decided to take it up a notch onto this morning's session, and this morning we want to introduce our DX enthusiast. So what this really means is we'd love to have you sharing your insights and sharing the session with the world on social media. So please feel free, post your posts on Twitter and post your posts on LinkedIn during this morning session or even afterwards. We'll give you up until about lunchtime. And then what we will do is we will announce on email after the session later on today who our DX enthusiast is. You stand a chance to win a prize. So we'd really love you to encourage you to tweet about us or just share us on LinkedIn, share some posts, but don't forget that hashtag Syspro DX. Okay, so let's quickly have a look at today's lineup. Today's really focus and topic is really about the world of automation. So we are going to be joined by two speakers this morning. Andrew Yates from Qual Technologies is joining us, and Munirati Husfus from ISB Consulting. And they're really going to be talking to us about what automation looks like. So when we talked about digital transformation, we know that it's a business change. It's a change for the organization from a culture and adoption of technology tools. But part of this journey is also understanding what those digital enablers are for us. So when we often talk in the world of digital transformation, the big topic of Industry 4.0 comes up, and how we start to look at getting machines and systems connected so that we can start to share information, connect those machines into our business applications and into our business worlds and gain insight from them, and really ultimately drive collaboration. But when we actually talk about automation in a business context or in a digital transformation space, what we really are talking about is connecting anything physical with digital. So while Industry 4.0 for our production and our manufacturing environments and our warehouses really talks about getting our machines integrated and our machines automated into business applications, we also have to consider that there's a concept or an area of people automation that we can look at as well to drive value. And that's really where the two topics today are going to be focused on. We're going to be looking at machine automation and some of the benefits around getting machines connected so that we can collaborate and gain insight from the data they're able to provide, but as well as some of the experiences and ways that we can look at automating the people components and how we drive automation in those processes as well. So Andrew and Munya will be taking us through that, giving us some insights and sharing some of those experiences with us. So we are going to be talking about that world of Industry 4.0, also known as IIoT and smart manufacturing. So please keep your questions coming. And let me hand over to our first speaker for this morning, Andrew Yates. Andrew is from Qual Technologies. He's got over 29 years of experience in the IT industry. Andrew has deep technical understanding of network infrastructure across multiple vendors. Andrew was the co-founder and technical director of Rtech Computer Systems until 2007, when the business was acquired by NetSurate. Andrew's primary role was head of solutions architecture and pre-sale support. Andrew also developed Rtech into a Microsoft Gold partner with competencies in network infrastructure solutions, advanced network infrastructure solutions, security solutions, and information worker solutions. Andrew's specialization has been with Microsoft Network Infrastructure products, and he has consulted locally and internationally in Africa, Australia, and New Zealand as a Microsoft Associate Consultant. Qual Technologies was established in 2018 to bring production and condition monitoring to the greater manufacturing sector. Andrew is one of the founders of Qual Technologies and functions as a technical liaison and solution architect. Andrew, very happy to have you on the session with us this morning. Really, really interested and can't wait to get some insight around bringing production and condition monitoring to the greater manufacturing sector. Looking forward to your talk. Thanks for joining us.
Deirdre, thank you so much for having us, and we can't thank you enough. Thank you to Syspro for hosting this event. And let me just see if I can get my presentation up. I just want to check you guys can see that.
It looks good, Andrew.
Thank you. Okay, so it's not very difficult to find a manufacturing customer who knows that they need to embrace Industry 4.0. That's not really, the why question isn't so much of a challenge. It's very much about the how. How on earth do you go about this? It's an overwhelming challenge. And what I'm hopefully going to do today is to share the Qual Technologies journey we've been on with these customers and explain to you how we've been able to help them and give you some practical examples of how these customers are able to benefit from digital transformation in their production environments and hopefully inspire you on how you can adapt these types of solutions to your own business or to your customers' businesses. So the passion, our primary goal or passion is to help customers solve very painful problems using technologies. That's what we're deeply passionate about. And Quill's primary purpose of existing is to help the SME manufacturing sector compete with the bigger players, giving them the same kinds of tools that the bigger manufacturers have had for decades. And the vision is to make real-time production and condition monitoring pervasive and affordable to all. So that's what we do. And a little bit of history. So for decades now, the biggest challenge IT integrators have had is being able to innovate outside this green boundary, which is delineated by the walls, the bricks and mortar of the admin block. We've had lots of tools available in CRM, HR, accounting, generic IT services that have allowed us to optimize what's going on inside the admin block. But we've been starved for tools that give us visibility outside of that admin block and allow us to extend that green boundary to the perimeter of the entire business and have a view, this coherent view of everything that's going on in the organization, from material receiving to goods delivery. And the reason it's been a challenge is that the previous architecture has become, it's been historically very expensive. So in a typical large manufacturing environment, you'd have three primary realms. That's the ERP environment, the manufacturing execution system, and then the SCADA systems. And each of these realms has got its own namespace and its own view of the business objects that it's concerned with. And what happens typically is that the expertise that know about ERP systems don't have expertise below the ERP into the manufacturing execution system. So traditionally when a large manufacturer sets up a new factory, they'd engineer and design all of these layers together, and then the three different vendors would come and do deploy their technologies, and then there'd be an integration, a vertical integration project that would map the objects in each of the namespaces of these three different areas to each other, which is expensive because no single vendor has got enough skill to do the integration. Typically, it's a collaboration that's required to facilitate that. And once the production environment's up and running, if the company wants to do a change or add a line or something, they have to make the change at all of the three layers, and then they have to get the experts in to modify the integration at all of these two layers again. So this technology is not new. Production monitoring and condition monitoring isn't new. It's just been, the SME and mid-market has been economically excluded because the tools haven't been available to them. So the new world, the Industry 4.0 version of this stack looks very different. So it unlocks a whole bunch of potential, which is massively exciting. So what you have in the new world is the ERP system and the integration to the manufacturing system and the SCADA. These vertical integration components are no longer required. And what we do is we collect information or data. We do data acquisition at a physical level from the factory floor on all the equipment and the production processes. And that information gets acquired through IoT, and it gets stored in the cloud in a convenient, accessible place. And then each of these realms is able to then subscribe and interact with the subsets of the data. But the most important point here is now you have a unified namespace that defines the entire organization from the ERP system all the way down to the components on the floor. And what that allows us to do is to defer decision-making for optimization and problem solving to machine learning, which is a new element that is now easy to plug in because the data is in a central place and readily available, and the namespace is consistent across the organization. The building blocks that enable this, the new building blocks that we've seen come to the fore in the last 10 years, is the Internet of Things, which is giving machines a voice and the ability to communicate their health and status to the outside world. Cloud computing, providing flexibility and collaboration, ease of collaboration between the different elements that need access to the data. The insight stack, BI tools and alerting, dashboarding, machine learning, all of those components. And then finally, blockchain. And you might be wondering, well, how does blockchain fit into this? It provides a technology that can replace potentially litigation or some kind of a digital evidence of a process being followed, which could be very much applicable in a health and safety environment or compliance requirement. If you look at when we started this journey, and you look at all the different building blocks, multiple vendors were building multiple pieces of the solution. So you've got companies focusing just on building sensors, and companies focusing on cloud computing and IoT fabric and reporting tools. And the partners and the customers are presented with an overwhelming challenge. They've firstly got to select which components they want to use, and they've got to assemble these things in a coherent project to deliver value to the business, which is typically CapEx heavy. It's capital intensive to do these projects. And they typically follow a waterfall approach, and they have a high risk of becoming a white elephant or having massive budget overruns. And so what we try to do in Quill is to cherry pick the best of the vendors that are out there and assemble them vertically in a cling-wrapped solution that removes the complexity from the partner or the customer from choosing the elements, and they're really just subscribing to a service. So Quill is basically an open platform that exists as a turnkey solution. It also moves away from a CapEx-based model. It's an OpEx-based, subscription-based service. So the customers or the partners would typically acquire the service on a pay-per-use per whatever it is they're monitoring or need visibility on. And the types of industries that we engage with at the moment are agglomeration, which is an offshoot of mining. It's all about converting fine aggregate powder and dust and fine grain material into pellets. In this case, our customers are converting 1 million tons of coal dust into pellets so that they can sell the coal. You can't burn coal as a fine aggregate. In terms of mining operations, we've got customers that do aeration solutions for mining. That's underground fresh air services, and also aeration of refining operations, evacuating toxic chemicals from the refining process. So it's critical for them from a health and safety perspective to have real-time understanding of the health and the status of the equipment in the field. And typically this equipment's based in faraway locations. So they really need to be able to have remote visibility on what they're doing. We've got partners in brick making and chemical production and industrial refrigeration. This schematic shows the basic architecture of a typical deployment. So in the solution, you can see we've got a production line, and this production line will typically have embedded sensors and electronics with certain metrics that are useful to our process. But it may also have some of our sensors attached to collect additional information. So we're talking about things like vibration data, temperature data, counting of widgets, whatever it is that we're producing, pressure differential, electrical consumption, all that kind of data gets collected typically every second on the sensor network, and then it gets pre-processed on premise, and then our gateway device converts it into an internet-friendly format, and then it gets transmitted securely to a central place in the cloud. And then from there, we can do all sorts of different things. We can do a data stream, a real-time alerting, and feed into machine learning algorithms and present dashboards in real time to customers on selected platforms. So they may have a smartphone or a web front end or whatever it is. They can get the data in real time wherever they are. And these dashboards tend to be customized and segmented depending on the audience. So the executive team, and they're going to want a different set of data to the production management guys, and the maintenance teams are going to want a very maintenance-centric view of their data. So that data, the data views are split based on the audience. And these are some examples of when we first started this journey. The industry was in a very immature state, and there were a couple of components that simply weren't available to us. So Quill's got an electrical engineering and software development competency internally. So we had to build some of the key core components of our solution to start. But what is really happening is manufacturers of equipment, as we progress, these manufacturers are starting to embed their equipment with sensors to make them Internet of Things ready for the future. But we also need a way to collect data from legacy equipment that doesn't have any of these sensors. So that is why we had to build some of our own key core components to make the solution work. Now, just getting back to the consistent namespace view of the organization. If you look at the way the dashboards are structured, what we like to do is to give the customers and the partners a hierarchical view of the organization. So typically at the top, they'd have a location level or a factory level view, which with a health indicator that would tell them they're lower normal, upper normal, in a warning state or in an alarm state. But it wouldn't give the level of detail at that point. What they would do then is they would drill down to a production line level view, and they'd be able to identify which production line in that factory is causing the alarm or the warning. And they could drill down further to each equipment assembly. So a production line is typically segmented into different parts of the process. So this would be breaking that into its component parts, and then that gets broken down into individual assets. And then for each of those assets, we're collecting metrics directly, and we're building some of our own derived metrics. So an example of that would be, if you walk through most factories, the businesses don't have any idea, for example, how many operating hours any particular piece of equipment has had, which makes it difficult for scheduling maintenance or planning replacement of legacy equipment. So what we do is in the background, we count how many operating hours a gearbox or an electric motor or a conveyor or whatever it is as having, and we keep odometers and trip meters on these things so that when servicing happens, the team can reset that trip meter and they know exactly how to plan their scheduled maintenance because it's all digital. The other types of information at that asset level that would be available would be the count of vibration alarms, electrical consumption, that kind of data is also available. So the first example I'm going to talk about is a customer of ours that makes, they make lots of plastic products, but this particular production line makes bottle caps by the millions a day. And their challenges are their process is very manual. So they've got 3 shifts a day, and they spend 2 hours the following morning of every day compiling production efficiency reports and calculating how effective the production shifts were and how much product they produced. And then they capture that into their financial system, and they do all sorts of analysis, and then they try and determine manually what may have caused the inefficiencies. So for this particular customer, what they did was they installed a counter on the input side and a counter on the output side. It might sound crazy, but that's all we need. If you know the inputs and you know the output, you can calculate the waste and you can calculate the overall equipment effectiveness metrics, and you can provide that data in real time. So the benefits they get out of this is they've got real-time visibility of issues. They can resolve them as and when they crop up, and they can prioritize capital expenditure on pieces of the plant that cause the most outages. They can reduce downtime by making sure that they're aware of what's causing the stoppages, and they've got instant production, and they save 40 hours of management time a month by removing all the manual work. And so this is an example of one of the dashboards. So at the bottom here, you can see physically what the sensor looks like. It's a light emitting receiving sensor. So there's a little beam that flows between the edges of this fork, and the bottle caps come flying through there at 1,500 caps a minute. But this little counter here can count up to 1,000 elements a second. And then that data is stored in a digital counter. And then we just scoop that data up every second. And then we send that data to the dashboard live. And then they can get real-time information. You can see at the top here, this blue line represents the total number of finished bottle caps they've produced during the day. And the green line shows the running or stop state of the production line in minutes, in bottle caps per minute. And then from those 2 metrics, we can derive how many rejects, and we can define them by kilogram, which is how they measure them. So we just multiply the weight of each cap by the number of grams per cap, by the number of wastages, and we can calculate the kilograms. We can also automatically count the number of stoppages per shift, and we can count the total number of minutes per shift that they had of stoppages and why. So this has changed their world. I mean, it's removed the blinkers, and they can see real time what's happening. The second example is a partner of ours who's providing a retail supermarket cost optimization services to supermarkets throughout Southern Africa. And so they are experts in refrigeration, but they also manage all sorts of other elements of supermarket operations. But the particular area of focus for us is the refrigeration systems, because that's a significant cost and risk to the operation. And the kind of challenges they face is detecting and repairing leaks in the refrigeration system, dealing with power issues, damages to the ducting and the seals, the insulation, the vandalism that may occur, and the general wear and tear. And their biggest challenge is they have a central operations location, but their equipment is installed all over Southern Africa. So it's inefficient for them to do the servicing manually. They can't do routine site visits. It's lots of traveling and lots of over-servicing. So what they did was they implemented real-time condition monitoring, which involved connecting vibration sensors, temperature probes, flow rate sensors, and then connecting into their refrigeration controller electronics and collecting all the available metrics and making it available to them in real time in a dashboard and reports so that they can solve their under and over servicing challenges, so that they can also shift unnecessary electrical loads to off-peak times dynamically. And they can also do provide digital evidence of their SLAs and KPIs being met with their customers, which is critical for them. And this is an example of a dashboard in this environment. So what you see at the bottom is a picture of the, in this case, they use Danfoss refrigeration controllers to manage and load balance the load between the compressors across the refrigeration system. And then we connect all of our vibration sensors and our thermocouples up to collect the additional information that we need. And then in real time, the experts for refrigeration have got an engineering view of this information. Doesn't mean a hell of a lot to us because we're not experts in refrigeration, the partner is, but they define what they need on the dashboard, and then they can see which compressor's active, how many weeks of running time this particular compressor has had, and they can have a look at all sorts of detailed metric diagnostic information on the fly and deal with problems before they become critical to their operations. So one of the things I wanted to explain was because we're not experts in any of these verticals, our model is that, so we're good at getting information out of devices, off devices and out of other electronic devices, sending it into the cloud and producing dashboards and alerting and analytic tools for the customers to make decisions. But what we don't do is we don't employ experts in refrigeration or mining in each of these different instances. What we do is we partner with an expert and we collaborate with the engineer, and very often that partner is taking the solution to their customer, and they would rebrand the Quill platform as their platform. And then we collaborating with them to provide the solution jointly to their customers. And finally, I just wanted to talk about why it's really important to understand your objectives. I know in the previous sessions, it was highlighted that if you don't understand your objective, you set yourself up for failure. So what we really do is try to look for golden nuggets of value that the customer can attach to what it is that you're doing. Because if you don't do that, what happens is you produce a dashboard for them which they stop looking at, and it's a failure. So that if they're not going to use it or become dependent on it, you failed to really understand what they need and what they're looking for. So in our world, there's three areas that we look for adding value. The one is where we can improve efficiencies for the customer or save them money. So those would typically be saving management time and automating certain things that are manual, or helping them save, be more efficient with their maintenance. So reducing over-servicing and under-servicing so that they can optimize their servicing. Energy management is very topical at the moment as well, given all the challenges in production and ESCOM. And then the automation of menial tasks of data acquisition. And what this also allows the partners and the customers to do is to upskill the people that have those menial tasks of manual data acquisition. They can be retrained to a much more meaningful role within the organization, instead of just manually going around with a clipboard and taking readings and capturing them into Excel once an hour, which happens all the time. The second area of opportunity is in risk mitigation. And this is really to do with protecting the operation from unscheduled downtime. So it's to do with maintenance, but it's predicting failure as well. If you can, you might have a piece of equipment that's worth 100,000 Rand, but the downtime to the organization is 500,000 Rand a day. So if you can monitor that piece of equipment effectively and predict when its effective wear is starting to become exponential, you can raise the alarm early and give them time to schedule downtime that's convenient for them to do whatever work is required to rectify the situation and replace whatever the wear components are. So that helps protect them from reputational damage. We've got customers who, if they have a production issue, it can result in them missing a delivery time. And if they're delivering to the wrong customer, they might even be downgraded as a vendor for that customer. So in order to mitigate that, what they often have to do is incur a lot of overtime costs to catch up production runs that are missed during normal operations because of maintenance issues. So that's critical, the risk mitigation part. And then the last part is to do with competitive enablers, giving them the opportunity to be more competitive in their own market. So if they've got a predictable production platform, then they're going to be much better placed to be competitive in their market space. The other thing that has happened in more than one partner is the condition monitoring and the production monitoring solution has given the partner the opportunity to relook at their business model. In some situations, instead of having to sell the equipment that the factory makes use of, the vendor is in a position to rent the equipment out to the customer, because they've got real-time visibility on the health and well-being of the equipment, and they can do proactive maintenance on the equipment remotely. So it allows them to have more customers than they would have otherwise, because they didn't have a way of monitoring the equipment, so they couldn't rent it out. So this is all about then giving them the real-time visual of what's going on and having the ability to make decisions in real time, often automated as well. So with the unified namespace, imagine you were able to delegate some of the optimization problems solving to machine learning algorithms, because now you've got this end-to-end namespace and this view of your organization. It's going to be difficult for your competitors to compete against you. When you're optimizing your operations every 10 seconds, you've got something optimizing and optimizing and optimizing. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. You guys are welcome to ask any questions. Just see.
Andrew, we've actually got quite a few questions online, so I'm going to run those a little bit with you. And I just wanted to ask you just one quick thing. So obviously, when we talk about production facilities, and coming from an ERP company like Syspro, where we've got a built-in MES application and an MES module, this is one area where we do. You can plan your production as much as you like. But if your machines are not running optimally, or if they're potentially going to go into a failure position because of maintenance or something going wrong, I suppose that's where really the monitoring that you guys do with the sensors on the machinery really comes to the fore, is it kind of potentially allows us to get visibility of that beforehand, and potentially from a production perspective, allow us to change machine before we start, and then halfway through production, something goes wrong. Is that one of the use cases you guys have seen coming out of this experience?
Absolutely. So what really then our role then is almost like a last mile data acquisition capability for ERP, where bits of the physical world information that would be useful to the ERP, now we can interact with APIs and provide that data in real time. For all sorts of things. I'm sure you can come up with lots of examples of how that would help.
Yes, perfect. So one of the questions we do have online is just, I suppose, and I really liked in the beginning, we talked about sometimes we need to help the smaller players get into a space where we can compete with the bigger players as well. And that's really where you guys, I know your passion sits. What does this cost look like though? So, I mean, are we talking hundreds of thousands? Are we talking thousands? You know, what does this generally take from an investment point of view for an SME?
That's a brilliant question. So the extensive amount of engineering work that's gone into building, cherry picking the layers of the stack that we're going to use, and testing and building and developing it into a cohesive solution. What we've been able to do is build it in an open enough way so that it's adaptable to multiple different industries. And we've, in a way, we've kind of taken inspiration from the software as a service model, and we've said it would be really great to have a low capex and opex focused model, operating model, because it does a whole bunch of things. It makes it affordable for the small manufacturer that really needs this real-time view, but can't afford to go to a vendor and ask them to build them a bespoke system. We don't think there's any compromise there either, because it's very open. So there is, what we typically would do is, in an industry, we develop something for that industry, and then the costs of that customization get amortized across tens of thousands of devices and hundreds of customers. So when we engage with partners, we obviously make sure that there's enough scope so that the investment we make up front can in the long term be amortized over hundreds of customers over time. And the other big benefit is the customer gets an ongoing and ever improving platform. So to put a rands and cents answer to your question, very low capex. So you're talking well below 100,000 Rand for a small factory to get going. And then below 10 or 20,000 Rand a month, depending on what they want, you know, for a fairly significant size operation. And what tends to happen there is you're doing something for them and they go, oh, that's really great, but it would be really nice if we could get our bulk product inventory automated. We've got a guy with a clipboard that comes out twice a day and takes readings of these tanks. Can you automate that? And then the customer actually has this iterative process that happens where he starts with some golden nuggets of the solution, but then every year you're adding little components, and he's building this thing over time instead of this big upfront cost that you have.
Perfect. And then I know you guys have worked quite a lot with bringing your own sensors in, and this talks to a lot of, you know, in some cases we are dealing with machinery that is not IoT ready or IoT capable, in which case, you know, we still want to get the value by bringing sensors onto the device, which you guys have worked quite a lot with. But, you know, we also do deal with a lot of machines that have got SCADA systems built in, and they've got the technology already. Do you guys then just work with that? Or how would you, the one question that came up was, how would it be different from a typical SCADA system?
It's even better for us if there's a lot of data already available and we can just plug in and connect to it. And the great thing about the historical systems is there are a lot of standards. So to get a bit technical, Modbus is a very pervasive industrial network technology. And so, you know, the systems you're talking about, the existing SCADA systems, pretty much all of them supports some kind of Modbus RTU or Modbus TCP, and then our system would just plug in. And we don't want to duplicate what they're doing. If they've already got the data, they know the speed of the motor, they know the temperature of the controllers and everything, then we just acquire the data from that. And quite frankly, the less of our own sensors we need to attach, the better. The better for us and the better for the customer.
For sure. And then just added to that, just following on with some of the questions, there was a bit of a and I think this always comes up in a digital space, because I know obviously we're taking data, we're putting it up into a cloud, we're running it through analytics to get those nice dashboards and outputs and alerts and everything like that. And this is always the question that obviously comes up is, who owns the data? And is the access restricted to the customer? So how do we challenge that? I suppose it's always that security and privacy concern that comes around.
That's also a good question. And because the industry is quite immature, there aren't that many, how can I say, established understandings of exactly, it is confusing who owns the data. But what the partners do is when they, in our situation, the partners use the platform, but they own the data, and that's an agreement between us and the partner. And then they would have their own agreements with their customers. It's their data, and typically we wouldn't engage with more than one vendor in a particular vertical, because that partner is sharing a lot of their own applied knowledge, skills and know-how that they've developed over time to explain to us how those dashboards need to be built. So that's proprietary to them as well. So not just the data, but the actual, what metrics they're presenting and how they're presenting them and how they're reporting, that is typically owned by the partner. And we're just really the platform provider.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's quite interesting because it is that business model. You know, in some cases, the solution is around helping the business and their production facility get insight and leverage. But in some cases, you know, the work you guys do with clients is that you're actually helping them build a monitoring business system on their products, i.e. if they're a refrigeration manufacturing company, then they could use that as an on-sale service. And it really talks to, I think, what we're seeing a lot in the digital transformation space about businesses re-looking at ways to do revenue streams and bringing in rental options. We are running a little bit out of time. There are a few more questions, actually quite a few around just insight and contact details for you, and just copy of the presentation. Just so that everyone knows online, we will be sharing all the information after today's session. You will get a mailer with the recording, with the presentation, and with that as well, we'll be able to supply the details of the speakers as well. So thank you all for those questions. Andrew, I'm gonna unfortunately have to stop us there a little bit now, but we really appreciate the time, really appreciate the insights, and just want to thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much. It's been fun. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for your time.
Perfect. So on that note, I want us to quickly go into a poll. For everyone online, if we just think about where we're at from a business perspective, obviously one of the areas is about how do we take our factories, and do we need to automate our factories? So our quick question for you this morning is your factory a smart factory? No. Is it in progress, or are you already a smart factory? We'd love to know where you're at on your smart factory journey. So the poll should be up on your screen. If you can just quickly do your option and give us your selection, and then we can see the results of that. Sure, quite a high percentage are sitting in a no state with regards to a smart factory. 37% are in progress, and 7% are already a smart factory. Wow, very interesting, guys. Thank you for sharing. So this really takes us to our next speaker today. We are going to move over to Munyaradzi Huzvu. He's the founder and managing director of ISP Consulting. Munyaradzi holds various qualifications, and I must be honest, this is a bit of a mouthful, so bear with me. And his qualifications include MSc Engineering, Industrial Engineering WITS, GDE Industrial Engineering WITS, an MCert Business Process Management, University of San Francisco, a B Engineering Honors IEN, an NUST Product Management Professional PMP, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, Acuity Institute, and Scrum Master Certified. Sure, that's quite a portfolio right there. He has a career span of over 16 years. He has diverse business transformation, project management, business performance improvement, business process management, process strategy alignment, Lean Six Sigma, agile optimization, and industrial engineering experience. He has also presented multiple courses in the field of business process management and other related programs. Minya has also worked as a senior consultant with several blue chain companies in various professional capacities, including Standard Bank, MTN South Africa, Max Steel, MultiChoice Africa, Eskom, Star Africa Corporation, Pipco International, amongst others, where his ingenuity proved invaluable and pivotal. His experience is in a wide range of industries, coupled with his passion for exceptional performance and continuous improvement, have seen him develop exceptional capabilities at strategic, operational, and tactical level. His work involves, among other things, consulting engagements, development of training materials in his subject matter expert areas, presenting courses, development and implementation of standards. Welcome, Minya. We're very, very happy to have you on the session with us this morning. I'm looking forward to just some of your insights and discussions around automation. While we wait for Minya just to get his video up and his presentations, I just want to remind everyone, don't forget about our hashtag SysproDX and become our DX enthusiast. And please, while Minya is chatting and talking to us, please keep your questions coming on the Q&A and on the chat. And again, we'll try and answer them as much as we can towards the end of the session. Minya, thanks for joining us. Look forward to what you have to share.
Thank you, Deidre. I hope all you guys can hear me clearly.
Loud and clear. Thanks, Minya.
All right, that's perfect. And thank you all for joining us in this digital transformation webinar. What I'm going to be taking you through is robotic process automation and what we call the digital workforce. So I will go straight into it, and then we can chat at the end of the presentation, where you can ask some questions, and you can be popping your questions through that chat window so that we can address them once we get to the end. So what I'm talking to is an extension to what you've just gone through, where you were looking at Internet of Things and how Internet of Things is coming in to assist with the production line, with putting in sensors that get you data from the production line. Now I'm extending that conversation to now your front-end and computer-based processes, where we now start looking at automation using robotic process automation. So the first thing that I'm going to talk to is automation itself, to say what is automation. So let's start from right there, where automation is the technique to make a process or system or device work on its own. And it is the creation and application of technology to make processes work on their own. So what we're talking here is, normally we have gone through phase of automation from the first industrial revolution, which then moved into the computer space, where we've automated quite a lot of processes using computers. But then the automation that we have done across all industries and across all organizations, if you look at this picture that I've got on there, we are talking plus or minus 20%, because this automation has been based on either implementation of ERPs, implementation of custom systems, legacy systems that we've developed over years to help us execute on particular tasks and particular processes that are more front-end facing. Now, what we are looking at is the next phase of automation, where we are augmenting human labor with existing systems and with what we are calling the digital labor, which I'll explain a bit later on, to bring in tremendous levels of efficiencies, to bring in tremendous levels of effectiveness. So what we are bridging here is this 80% gap, where we have traditionally automated 20% of our processes, and we have human beings that come and work with that 20% automation to give us our current productivity. Now we want to bridge that gap and get to probably 90% kind of automation and increase our levels of efficiency. Now, in terms of bridging that gap, what am I talking about? So an example here is the traditional automation would have looked at an employee that works with an ERP system, for example. Now, invoices come through an email. They receive an email, and then within that email, they download an invoice. They extract the data. They probably, maybe depending on the nature of the data, they probably will maybe capture it into an Excel sheet. And then from that Excel sheet, they'll then take that Excel sheet, maybe upload it into ERP, or copy and paste that information into the ERP system. This is the 20% that I'm talking about. Now, the next level of automation that we want to get to is where we augment this human being, this employee, with a digital worker, which is a robot or a bot in this case, so that when the email comes in, the bot goes in, retrieves the email, downloads the attachment, extracts the data, and it can actually go in and populate the information into the ERP system, so that we've got tremendous levels of efficiency, and we've got this human being freed up to provide more value-adding activities to the organization, rather than just copying and pasting information from one document to the other. We can delegate that information or that piece of work to a bot which doesn't need much thinking. So the solution that I'm talking about here to that 80% gap is a solution where we bring together digital workers, knowledge workers, which are human beings, the digital workforce, and every system that we've got, ERP system, legacy system, CRM systems, sales systems, we bring all of those together and they work together to automate that 80% gap. What am I talking about? Let's introduce the digital workforce. So on here, the digital workforce is a combination of RPA, which I call robotic process automation. How robotic process automation works is we've got a human being that normally goes onto a computer and conducts a particular task. So the bot records the actions that the human being would normally do. And then once it has recorded that, it now knows what it needs to do. It learns from the human being. It replicates that action as many times as necessary. If you look at that picture that is on your top left corner, the benefits of that is we are eliminating human intervention, number one. Number two is we are eliminating errors. And number three, we are doing this work at a much faster and at a rapid rate, where we are talking normally, a human being, when we are working, we work on an 8-hour day. We would typically work plus or minus 6 hours. Now, with the advent of social media, we probably are now working only around about 4 hours, because we still have got another 30 minutes, 2 hours that we've got to check our WhatsApps, we've got to check our emails, we've got to check social media, Insta is here, all of that. So those are all discrepancies that are coming to distract the human mind, and it gets us to reduce the productivity that we are working with. Now, where we are going is a space where we free the human mind from repetitive tasks, from mundane tasks that don't add any value. So that now we are looking at this picture that is on your right-hand top corner, where we free the human being so that within that 4 hours that they actually work and they're actually productive, we get the best out of them. Rather than having them sitting and copying and pasting information from different systems, we have them creating more value intelligent activities that include, say, for example, empathy, where we're looking at customer service, where the human being can now be responsible to deal and address customer issues rather than copying and pasting information. So we're allowing employees, bottom left corner, we allow employees to focus on creativity, judgment, and personal interactions. And we give the organization's ability on the front end to make faster implementations and improve user adoption across the entire organization. That is what I'm talking about when I'm saying the digital workforce. Now, the digital worker generally acts like a person. So it is a computer bot that we configure on any particular system that you use. It acts like a person in the sense that it emulates a person by executing manual repetitive tasks in existing applications. It uses the system like a person, and the processes that we are looking to automate are rule-based processes, front-end processes, back-office processes where we've got structured data. I'll talk about structured data a bit later on in this presentation. It analyzes like a person, so it makes insightful business analysis to bring business value to the organization. Real-time, actionable, it mines data across thousands of apps. Now, what you find in most organizations, especially when you look at front-end employees or employees that deal with customers, is that you find most of employee data or customer data sits across multiple systems. So you would typically have a CRM system where the information about the customer address, customer details is sitting in your CRM. And then you would have your ERP system, and then within the ERP system is where you've got purchase orders, invoicing, and financial details of that particular customer. And then you would typically also have probably another production system where you've got production data around work in progress that you are producing for that particular customer. Now, if a customer walks in and the front-end employee has to address that customer and information is sitting across those different systems, it becomes a tedious task for that employee to go through the systems, log out of that one, log into the next one, log out of that, extract information, and at the same time, address the customer issue. So what we're doing here is we are automating the mining of information across this system. We bring it into one place and we present it to the employee so that the employee can work together with the bot, but the employee is now responsible for making decisions. The employee is now responsible for making empathy, decisions that have got to do with actually addressing the needs of the customer and thereby bringing strategic value to the organization. There are three types of automation that we are talking in this particular case. We've got what we call front-end or attended automation. And then we've got what we call unattended automation, and then cognitive automation. Attended automation is typically where you are automating processes that are customer facing, where you've got employees that typically work in call centers, where a bot is working together with a human worker, making them exponentially more productive and far more fulfilled. And then the second type of automation is unattended automation, where we are now looking at back office automation. Back office automation is the example I gave earlier on, is around the invoice that is coming in into a mailbox, and then the bot goes into that mailbox, extracts the invoice, extracts information out of that invoice, and then populates that information into the ERP system or whatever your financial systems for further processing. And then the third level of automation is what we call cognitive automation. Within the cognitive automation space, here, this is where the bot is able to learn. The bot is able to imitate what a human being would have done in a particular instance. I'll talk a bit more around the cognitive automation and the learning component of it. But elements of automation that we are talking here is unstructured data, which is data that sits typically in PDF documents or sits in pictures or images that is not necessarily structured like Excel documents. Now, let's talk about those three in a bit more detail. I'm going to start with attended automation. Now, I see here attended automation talks to front-end office inefficiencies, where you log into applications, search customer records in multiple places, that picture on the bottom left corner. You open cases, you take notes, you generate reports. So in this case here, what we're doing is we are giving the front-end employees, which are the people that address customers, a bot or an assistant, which we're calling the digital worker, to work hand in hand with. The bot will do the mundane tasks. The bot will do the repetitive tasks that don't add much value. And then the human being addresses the customer needs. So we're talking a repetitive task where you're manually validating data, you're manually populating data, you're manually generating reports. And then you've got multiple systems that are incompatible. So you've got to log out of one and log into the other. This is where the front-end or attended automation component of the digital workforce. Unattended automation. Here we've got now the RPA bots automating back office processes at scale, provisioning rules-based processes, and the bots completing the business process without any human intervention, typically at a predetermined schedule. The third component I see is cognitive automation, where we are dealing with unstructured data. Now, in a typical organization, most of the information that comes in is unstructured data. It is data that sits in emails. It is data that sits in PDF documents. It is data that sits in Word documents. And this information does not come in a particular structure. One document and the next document will completely be in two different structures. So this is an element where we can teach the bot to be able to go in, look at that unstructured data, understand it, and learn what that particular piece of information is, and then extract it for additional processing and then feed it to a human being, or if in the case of unattended automation, go on to process that information. So emails, PDF documents, contract documents, all of those pieces of information are what we are talking here in terms of dark or hidden data that we can extract using bots for additional processing. Now, what is the vision that you're trying to achieve with the digital worker? One of the questions that we always get with our clients around the introduction of the digital workers and the introduction of robotic process automation is, are we coming to take people's jobs? Because I've been talking about freeing up human beings. I've been talking about bot that is coming in to do a lot of the work that human beings are currently doing. So are we going to fuel unemployment? And us being in a developing world, which is most of Africa, the concern is around what do we do with our citizens if we are freeing them up and we are taking away their jobs. The vision we have with the digital workers is that we see a world where every employee works side by side with digital workers. The vision is we do not want to take away jobs. The vision is we want to increase productivity. We want to increase efficiencies. So we're bringing an assistant for each of the employees, each of our employees, so that they work with a particular digital worker. And when a human being and a digital worker work together, we create a world of endless possibilities. I'll show you a few examples in the next few slides, where, for example, we're looking at this particular system where we've got digital workers transforming information coming from PDF documents. I spoke about this earlier on. We are enhancing audit and traceability. We are saving thousands and thousands of hours. We're eliminating human error. We are increasing law morale. We're reducing time available for strategic activities because we've freed human beings. And this is a picture which shows how a typical, sorry, just give me a second. This is a picture that shows how interaction of digital workers happens in a particular environment. So you'd typically have your Syspro here being your ERP, and then you've got various cloud applications. You could have Syspro Expresso, you could have Salesforce, you could have other CRM applications sitting in your environment. And this is the space where the digital workers come in to bridge that gap between the human being and the multiple disparate systems. Let's talk about an example. I've been talking about the invoice one, which is quite an easy one, which everyone quite understands because it gets us paid, I suppose. Look at this example here. We've got three components that are working here. The first component is an invoice is coming in, and we extract that using robotic process automation. This is the front-end automation. We feed that automation into what we call IQ bot, which is what I called earlier on cognitive automation, where the bot is going in to understand the type of information that has come, or it is mining information from the dark data that has come in. So within the digital, we digitize the invoice, we extract information out of it. We send it back into the front-end automation, which is robotic process automation. We check for policy violation. We're checking for invoice validation. This is the space where you would be checking the invoice, say, for example, for SARS compliance. You're checking if it is a VAT number, you're checking if it is an address. And if you're happy with all of those components, probably your next level of checking is three-way matching, where you now need to check that invoice versus against a goods receipt, or you're checking that invoice against a purchase order to validate the values that are in that particular invoice. So the bot is doing all of that. And then if it is happy with that, it then pushes the invoice into the payment process where the approval and the payment happens. And depending on how we structure it for the organization, for invoices that are straightforward, the payment process can also be automated where it goes straight into payment and it's approved and your client is paid. Or we send this now to a human being who now validates the payment process and we get the payment processed and with payment. If during the policy violation check, the bot finds a scenario that it doesn't find, the cognitive automation component that I was talking about earlier on kicks in, where the bot lands. It sends that information back to a human being and says, hey, Mr. Human Being, I received this invoice. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to do with it. And then the human being addresses that information, and the bot watches as the human being is resolving that particular scenario, which is this whole loop that comes back, which says IQ bot learning. So once the bot has learned, the next time that it finds that similar scenario, the bot will be able to proceed and process that particular scenario so that it gets better and better and better, matures like wine. I said earlier on, we are talking about endless possibilities of what we can automate using digital automation or digital workforce. Here, some of the advantages around leveraging the digital workforce is that it is code-free. We don't need detailed developers to sit behind lines and lines of code to activate a particular digital worker. This is something that we can teach to the employees themselves to actually be able to create a bot. It's quite easy, and the bot works at 100% capacity. The bot works non-stop. I gave the example where human beings, we normally work 24 hours a day. Now we're bringing in an assistant to the human being. That assistant can work for what, let's say 24 hours. So if you're giving a human being a digital assistant, what you're now actually getting in terms of productivity is now 28 hours a day, where typically you would have had 4 hours of productivity and efficiencies. I mean, that cannot be unrivaled. We are decreasing cycle times. We are improving data capture. We are increasing employee morale, improving accuracy, flexibility, and scalability. What types of processes can we automate? I've given here a few examples across the procurement space, across the financial space, across the human resources space. Within the financial spaces, we are talking examples of budgeting and forecasting, planning, funds allocation, reconciliations. If you're typically doing a reconciliation, bank statement reconciliation, when you've got an employee that sits and all they do is do bank statements reconciliations, it simply means they are taking one bank statement, they are taking another bank statement or another financial system, comparing values. If they're happy with the comparison of values, then the reconciliation is right. If they're not happy, then they go on to do an additional processing. This is a space where we are coming with the digital workers to say, let's free up the employees to deal with more strategic elements of the business, to deal with growing the businesses, to deal with dealing with customers, to improve customer experience, to improve our efficiencies, to drive the business and change the trajectory, whilst the digital workers do these repetitive, non-value adding activities using the cognitive abilities that they have. What are the benefits? Optimized labor cost, we're increasing our capacity, increased speed, compliance, controls, and auditability. This is one major benefit that you need to take note of when we talk of compliance, controls, and auditability, because every single action that the digital worker does is logged. If the bot clicks on the screen by mistake, we log that. If the human being that is interacting with the bot clicks on the screen, we record that. So every click, every action that a bot takes or a human being takes in interaction with the multiple systems that we have, our ERP systems, in this particular case, largely Syspro environment, we are taking note of that and we are logging that, such that when you get into your audit space or your audit cycles, we are tremendously reducing the amount of time that it takes for you to go through the audits. The controls are there, the compliance is there. So you're also making it quite easier for you to go through audits and pass audits. We are enabling digital transformation, and we are on the bottom left corner, we're increasing operational efficiency for the business. We are enhancing customer experience and strengthening governance. In this space as well, we are tightening fraud detection, data privacy, and access controls through automation. In terms of implementation, this is one thing that is quite easy to implement. Typically, we are talking the first wave of processes. We are talking within a period of 0 to 3 months, where we come in, we configure the robotic process automation platform, and then we get on to develop your first digital workers that are able to execute a particular process from end to end. So within the first 0 to 3 months, you will probably have between 5 to 10 processes that are automated. And then the next level of automation is within a period of 3 to 12 months, where we're now taking the rest of the organization, we are bringing the rest of your processes, your entire ERP space into an automated environment where the digital workers become part of your workforce. They work together with the human beings that you've got in the organization. And then the third component is 12 months plus, where you now start to own the platform, you now start to own the automation itself, and your employees are now able to automate processes by themselves. I said earlier on, this is quite easy to deploy. You don't need detailed developers. It's something that employees themselves can learn quickly and will be able to start automating processes, creating new digital workers, and making sure that the organization gets the value and the return on investment on the investment that you'd have done on digital workers. So yeah, that brings me to the end of the presentation around the digital workforce. Should you want to chat with us further, you can contact us through those contact details at www.isboptimus.com, or drop us an email, and we'll be able to chat to you further so that we see how within your Syspro environment we can assist you with some of the automation. Just for additional information as well, we have already created quite an extensive library of digital workers that are capable within the Syspro environment. Examples are within the cash book clerk, for example. Other examples would be around the accounts payable clerks. So those are things that we can get you time to value very quickly, and we can start moving. Back to you, Dedre.
Perfect, thanks, Munya. I do know we have a quick poll just while you and I chat and look at some of the questions and answers. So I think let's get that poll quickly on screen for us, so that the delegates or the attendees online can just quickly answer that poll. And there it is. Is your organization planning on process automation in the next 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 months plus, or not in the plan? Munya, thanks for a lot of that insight. And you know, the robotic process automation is a big topic, especially when we do start to look at a digital transformation journey, or really automating in a lot of ways. And using a bot that's not necessarily a seen bot or a noticeable bot has become quite a very efficient way to do that. And I know with Syspro, you guys have been working with our bot quite closely to handle a lot of the operational side of business application transactions. But I think, you know, just in the journey that you were talking about, we see that extension of bots across all applications for the business, which is really, really exciting. Oh, there we go. Our poll results are up. So we see 31% not in the plan, but however, majority of our attendees are either somewhere in a cycle of 3 months, 6 to 12 months, or 12 months plus. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for sharing that. So, Minnie, just some of the questions that have come up. Zandilia asked a quick question. You would really like to install a solution based on the one I think you gave as an example to handle customer queries and schedule them to the right person. And I think often this is the way, you know, we get information or requests coming in from so many different touch points. How do we funnel it into the company and then make sure that we push it out to the right people? This kind of solution where one could think about scheduling queries and then pushing them to the right person, he's asking, how would you do that? Or maybe not so much, because that's quite a big answer and very subjective to all the different touch points, but where would you encourage him to start?
Yeah, so with that kind of a scenario where you are using the bot to address customer queries, the first component would be for the bot to identify the type of queries that are coming through. So as the queries are coming, normally what we would do, we would create types of tags where the bot finds or goes through the query that is coming, whether the query is coming through an email or they come through chat, or you've got a dedicated service desk application. So we would have the bot interacting with those platforms, the email, the service desk platform, to extract the query first of all. Secondly, then identifies what type of query it is. And depending on the type of query, what we would then do is the first level, we can actually use that bot to be the first level of resolution. Because if it is a type of a query where a customer is requesting, say, for example, their bank state or their statement of account, we could actually have the bot go and extract that statement and send it back straight to the human being or to the customer. And then if it's a different or more complex type of query, depending on how your organization is structured, we would then route that query into to a human being, which becomes the attended automation component, where it goes to the human being, the right person, depending on the type of query. So we can route it to the type of, depending on the type of queries that are coming.
Perfect. And then I suppose, you know, if we think about bots and we teaching them to learn, and they are learning, and they use different machine learning algorithms and techniques and a bit of AI behind the scenes. You know, one of the questions from Melanie is just saying, but what if the bot learns the wrong thing? I mean, we know this. We saw it with some of Microsoft's test cases when they put out AI and handed it to different countries. In the one country, it was really a great value add. And in another country, it unfortunately learned some really bad manners. So we do understand that learning goes wrong. So what do you do in the scenario where your bot does learn the wrong procedure? Or is there a way to quickly identify that?
Yes, so in this case, like I said earlier on, one of the greatest advantages of the application that we are talking about here is we're talking cognitive ability. It is that ability to learn. Now, in a scenario where the bot is learning, in fact, let me talk about how the bot actually learns. The bot learns by the human being teaching it. So you teach the bot what to do. And as you teach it, you've got validations that you can build around it to say, this is how I'm going to measure, or this is how I'm going to track what the bot is doing or how the bot has learned. In an event where the bot finds a scenario that it doesn't know what to do with, it doesn't proceed. The way we structure it is such that if the bot finds any particular scenario that it doesn't know what to do, it doesn't self-teach itself. It sends that back to the human being and says, I don't know what to do with this particular scenario. Please tell me what to do. You then go ahead and teach it again. So it is the human being that actually teaches the bot itself, and then the bot uses that information. So what you typically find is in an organization that implements these bots is when you're starting off, you're probably starting off with a bot that is able to process probably, let's say 70, 80% of the information that is coming. The other 20% it probably doesn't know what to do with. So that 20% is the one that it then interacts back to the human being and say, I don't know what to do with this. And as you teach it, it gets better and better and better and better and better, such that probably within a period of 12 months that I was talking about, your bot is now able to handle almost all types of scenarios that are coming in that particular space.
Perfect. And then just, I'm very mindful of the time, so I know we've also got to wrap up a little bit. So just looking at another question that's just come through from Trevor, and there's quite a few, so we may have to take a session offline with Trevor, but the one that I just want to quickly ask is, he says, if you are going to roll this out, this kind of solution, do you need to do a detailed RPA readiness analysis to identify the candidate processes? Or are there ways where you could apply machine learning application on the client environment or into a business to determine which are the candidate tasks or processes that one potentially wants to put through RPA?
Mm-hmm. So in responding to that, I'll say it's a bit of both. The first component is understanding the client environment completely, which talks to the term that he used there, which is Rpa Readiness Assessment. So we need to understand the client environment or the customer's environment, where in this case, depending on the maturity of the organization, we've got a tiered approach to the implementation of RPA. So you would find that you've got organizations that are small, quite small organizations, and you wouldn't want to go and roll out a full-fledged RPA solution. So in that particular case, you could probably go with an RPA as a service model, where we handle the entire platform for them, and all they do is have a digital worker that is sitting on our environment. Or you've got a customer that is quite mature and we would want to have a full platform sitting in that environment, and they're quite ready to automate the entire set of their processes. So yes, the first component is we need to understand the readiness and the maturity of the organization in terms of process management, in terms of process efficiencies, and in terms of the automation component itself. Then the second part, which I'll say both, which is where the question was, would you use AI to understand the client environment? Once we go in and start with the actual automation, one of the aspects that we've got around the robotic process automation is what we call Process Discoverer. Now, Process Discoverer is a plugin that we plug into your environment, and then it goes through the process and logs as the human being is conducting these processes. So we are using AI to discover the candidates and the processes that you're actually doing in that particular component. So that's why I said it's a bit of both, yes.
Perfect. Minya, I just thank you so much. I know we are running out of time, so I really want to thank you for your insights today and really opening up the world of robotic process automation for us. There's lots to be considered and lots to learn from it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Deidre, and thank you all for joining us. I look forward to talking to you all.
Perfect. And to everyone online, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, you can still use that hashtag SysproDX on LinkedIn or Twitter and become our DX enthusiast. There's that nice prize waiting for that DX enthusiast. But But also, please don't forget to join us for our next session. Our next session is our final session of the series. And again, it's just going into the world of exploration. We will be joined with partner Ayoko, who will also be talking about some automation experiences and also automation considerations. And then we will end off with a really nice introduction into a bot called Alice, which will be presented and discussed with us from the Bidvest team. So that is on the 30th of September. We'd love to see you join us at that one, where we really start to unpack and look at the world of digital citizens within our businesses. When you do close the session today, there will be a survey as you shut down the Zoom session. Please take the time and let us know your feedback. We really do appreciate your participation and look forward to seeing you all online on the 30th of September. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time and for